How's it going, everyone? Mafari here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio. Today, I've been fortunate to be joined by Jake Ranney. I hope I pronounced it right. He's the author of Like It Never Happened. He's here to share his quite deeply personal story. So, first and foremost, thank you, Jake, for willingly sharing with the audience what you are wanting to share today. And without further ado, I hand it over to you. Tell us about yourself and what's kind of brought you on this journey to come onto podcasts and share your life story.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on your podcast. And then, um, basically, what kind of navigated me into writing this story is I had some, I had a situation that happened to me, and it kind of caused, like a big shift in my life. And, I had gone through many different forms of therapy and all of that. And during that time, a lot of people had recommended to me to write about what happened to me.
Mm,
And at the time, I didn't really think that that was going to help me, or it just kind of seemed a little silly to do. And then eventually, I kind of caved in and said, okay, well, I like writing. Like, I guess I'll just write about it. And as I was like writing and progressing through it, um, a lot of different pieces of the story started seeming more and more important to share. And then eventually, I was like, well, if I share my story, more people will realize that they can share their story and they'll have the strength enough to be able to talk willingly and openly about what happened to them or things that they go through.
wow. And thank you. Thank you for obviously having the courage to do that. And I guess if you don't mind me asking, without obviously encroaching too much, obviously you are a survivor of sexual assault, which is a very, very, very big thing. I've interviewed rape counselors on this podcast, so a lot of the stories they share are very interpersonal, and obviously it's a space that a lot of people don't have a real deep understanding of. So, I guess the question I would want to ask to begin with is, how did you decide to begin this healing journey to let go? And anyone that experiences trauma in their lives, and regardless of what the nature of that trauma is, it's always difficult learning, making that decision to heal and let go. So I guess if you don't mind me asking, when did you realize, or when did become evident that you are wanting to heal, or you're ready to heal and you're ready to let go, or start the process of letting go?
Well, basically, kind of through the therapies that I initiated in and friend groups and all of that. It's not really as far as letting go. Like, I'm never really going to be able to let go of it. It's always going to be something that happened to me,
Mm.
but and that I went through. But I can change the way I look at it, and I can help other people and share my story versus just holding it in and not really expressing it and just kind of going through it alone. Um, but mainly, like I had stated, like my counselors kind of um not like made me do it, but they were kind of like very expressive on how they thought it would be helpful. And so I kind of finally let in and caved into that. And my friends really kind of just helped me because some of my friends had gone through similar situations and they felt alone when they had gone through it. So it just kind of was like, well, I have this platform, I have this capability to be able to share my story and to let people know they aren't alone. I should take advantage of that in the best way I possibly can.
And I guess, as you mentioned, that we have all probably met or known someone who's been affected in a similar ordeal. How much of having a community of people that you can feel comfortable with, and having people that you know that don't necessarily have gone through exactly what you've gone through, but have that understanding, how important has that been in bringing you the necessary like comfort and ease with the experience that you've had to go through?
Honestly, it's very helpful and very crucial to my story, at least. Um, because if it wasn't for those people, then I wouldn't have felt comfortable enough to share my story.
Mm.
And honestly, that's kind of just what I'm trying to be, is I'm trying to be one of those people that allow people to feel comfortable to share their story and to know that what happens to them isn't their fault. And instead of letting it take control of their life, to kind of let it be an outlook on how they can help others. And if it wasn't for those people in my life, I don't know if I would necessarily have navigated towards that outlook.
And I guess in terms of just, victims of abuse or, of any kind, I guess how important do you think it is in today's society to develop pockets of space, not just within communities, but I guess on social media as a whole? Because I mean, we're human beings, we interact with each other, but I know a lot of us, we go through things that make us feel that we just aren't in that, we're not able to associate with no, with quote unquote normal people, if you want to put it that way, because of what we've gone through.
Yeah.
So how do you, especially, social media is it's a very toxic space, it's a very mentally unhealthy space, but in general, how would you like to see communities being established on social media that are actually beneficial to all parties, not just people who are victims of trauma, but for them to be integrated and holistically accepted, without feeling any different from anyone else?
Honestly, like you had mentioned, like, and I really like how you put the air quotes around normal, because in today's society, like, there isn't really a normal. And
Mm,
I feel that in order for us to kind of regulate all of this stuff, because eight times out of 10, we know, like you said, we know someone that has gone through it, or we have been someone who has gone through it.
mm,
And for those 2 people out of the 10 people that don't know anybody or haven't gone through it, it's still important for them to be educated about it. And I feel like if we just normalized being able to talk about what we went through versus having to push it down and live with it on our own and go through it
mm,
alone, then I feel like, one, social media wouldn't be a problem for people to go on and be able to share their stories, and two, people would feel more connected.
mm,
And I was talking to someone else about this as well, and they even brought up the kind of mentioned, well, if your house was robbed, you would go and tell people, oh, my house got robbed.
mm,
But if you were violated, you don't go around and tell people that. And
mm,
obviously, I'm not saying like, oh, we need to go and talk about it over coffee or whatever. And obviously, not when you're not, um, obviously, don't talk about it when you're not ready to share. But when
mm,
you are ready and you feel safe enough to share, it is important, because if you don't share it, then God knows, or whoever you believe in
mm,
knows, what's going to go on. And I feel that it's also important to share your story, because as someone who went through something like that, when I shared my story, and this is talked about in the book, the people that I shared my story to,
mm,
as far as like government officials, they didn't do anything and they didn't seem to care.
mm,
And if it wasn't for me sharing my story, and I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back,
mm,
then I wouldn't have brought an awareness to this situation that happened to me, to
mm,
alert the people around me that, hey, I was put in this situation. You very well can be put in this situation too,
mm,
especially because the government and officials aren't going to do anything to help make it safer.
mm. Very true.
And
Very true.
obviously I don't come out and say, oh, this is the name of so and so who did this to me,
Mm,
because I don't really want to bring them the limelight, and myself, I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't want it to become a big old thing. But if I was to say, oh, so and so did this to me, then that would show other people,
mm,
oh, so and so is capable of doing this, but there was never justice brought.
mm,
And I just feel that, um, without having to share names or without having to feel anything, because some people get justice and they still feel alone and all of that.
mm,
And if we were safer to make communities on social media or even person to person, face to face, I feel like less people would feel alone.
No, I completely understand, and obviously, it is a very difficult area and space because, again, as you mentioned, the dynamics of these things can be complicated, especially when it's people we know and everything, and so we live in a very where secrecy is sometimes better than truth. But the fact that you're shifting towards being transparent, I think it's really really commendable, and the fact that you are kind of coming through this on the other side, aware and at peace is probably going to be inspirational to a lot of people that have gone through the same thing. And um, I guess this is maybe more on the difficult side is finding communities for men to feel safe, because obviously based on how we're brought up, being vulnerable, especially being in a vulnerable state amongst other men, we don't want to be shunned upon for that. So I guess how would you like to see other men step into compassion and understanding for one another without judgment? Do you think that that's more something that should be included in today's society where, I'm not saying men aren't compassionate. I just know women are more compassionate for sure, which is why boys tend to lean on their mothers more than their dads in that sense. But would you like to see not weakness, but a bit more understanding and acceptance of just the difficulties that people go through in life amongst men themselves, that we are more holistic and we're more, I guess, harmonious amongst each other.
Honestly, I feel
I'm sorry, I don't know, you might have cut out because of the Wi-Fi signal. So if you can just come again, that froze out. Uh,
yeah, can you hear me
yeah,
or
yeah, now I can hear loud and clear. Now it's better. It's better now.
oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel that to answer your question, I feel that men honestly, I feel that if they knew that it was okay to be vulnerable and okay to be open and share your story and all of that stuff, because obviously we growing up we hear that men do like their locker room talk and they talk
Mm,
like different things and um all of that stuff, but it's just kind of like obviously we're a much smaller group that goes through it, but
mm,
being a man myself, like obviously it's it can happen to men as well and
mm,
it can happen to anybody. And um I feel that if we take the stigma around men having to have this guard up
mm,
and having to approach things in more of a masculine way, I feel that it would honestly just be a lot easier to go and talk to people and even like not to even call people out, but I've talked to friends that have been like, well, if this man was more emotional, I would feel more of a connection. And that's even without things happening. So it's just kind of like I feel that the more guard we have up, the less we're going to know about each other and the less we're going to be able to share.
mm,
And the more hesitant we're going to be. And I did like the comparison that you made versus where kids growing up, they're more likely to lean towards their mom versus their dad.
mm,
Um, because they are more open usually. And in my case particularly, I felt comfortable with both parents, but I just felt
mm,
more nurtured by my mom.
mm,
And obviously I still had difficulties even opening up to her about it,
mm,
but it's just kind of like the more we realize, okay, well, me having my guard up isn't going to change what happened to me,
mm,
but it can change how I cope with it
mm,
for the better. I feel if we have that more thinking process, it would help a lot more as far as even being able to go back to your last question, even being able to have those communities where people go and talk to each other,
Mm.
I feel that more of that guard is up, we're not going to be able to have those communities.
Yeah, and thank you for answering that. It's obviously not an easy one to kind of go about, but then I guess writing your book, it's difficult to go through things, and everyone in this life, I think, is going through something. Life is throwing someone, different battles, different tests, and writing this book. I always ask people who write about, because I've interviewed other guests, and I always have to ask this question: how cathartic was it in terms of writing it and seeing your story unfold on paper? How much of a healing effect did that have on just kind of overcoming the trauma, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, to be honest with you, when I first started this, because I have written a book prior to this one, but
Mm,
it was more of a this is what happened to me kind of be done with it. This one actually goes in depth about what actually happened, how it affected me, how it affected the other people, how it affected my story in life, how it affected their story in life, like the injustice of it all.
mm,
And it was very hard to even talk to people about it at first because it was kind of like, well, all these things are being brought back up. Like, I have to think of it in a different way. I have to think of it in their point of view.
mm,
Like, I have to express my emotions
mm,
deeply and just be all forthcoming with it. And it's just kind of, it was very hard and I got into my head a lot. Um, at the beginning stages of this, but the farther I got, I had to change my outlook and my mind because I was like, well, this is helping me, but at the same time it's helping other people, hopefully. And if this
mm,
just reaches one person, then it's all worth it. And the
mm,
more I thought in that mindset, it just became easier and easier. And at the same time, yeah, it did get me sad and got me in my head, but also it also in times it got me mad because I was like I had to reread reports and I reread different statements people made and different quotes and all of that. And I was like, how in the heck did this even end up the way it ended up? You know,
mm,
in my head, it just kind of got me more mad. And that piece was a lot harder to change my mindset on
mm,
because yeah, I could get sad and in my head about it and be like, oh, this helps other people. But when I got mad about it, I was like, oh, this needs to happen. This needs to happen.
mm,
And it just kind of, it was a lot harder for me to sit back and just be like, okay, I'm making it to help that one person out there, you know?
mm. No, I understand you. I understand you. And the fact that you did it and you completed the process with managing the anger and frustration, obviously, it shows how much strength you have and how much resolve you have in order to be of service to others ultimately. So I commend you for that. And again, it's not an easy thing to talk about, obviously, and there's not much anyone can say. Ultimately, what's done is done, and for the most part in life. But obviously, moving forward, what do you want to be doing with yourself? What do you want to be doing? But how do you envision, the new you that's emerging from this process? How do you feel about kind of, I don't want to say a rebirth, but a coming of shift, like change, like I don't know, I can't find the words for it unfortunately, but yeah, how do you feel with this new journey that you're partaking
Yeah.
on, and where it's taking you?
And even if you think you couldn't find the words, those like how you worded it was great, and I do understand the question. Basically, I kind of want to use this journey. Um, it's kind of shaping my life in the aspect where I do want to be that person that can help guide other people and help
Mm,
let people share their stories and express what happened to them. And it opened my mind to a very big field. whether that be like overcoming trauma, overcoming abuse specifically, um, psychology. Like it's just that whole field is very fascinating to me.
Mm,
As of right now, I might have further books down the road that help with
mm,
this. I am in the process of starting a podcast to help
mm,
other people be able to share their stories. Um, and I just want to be that person that helps other people because I want them to realize that they aren't alone, and I want them to know that uh, someone is there for them to help to get help. And I just this has just really opened my eyes to a whole new meaning of life,
mm,
to be honest with you. And the psychology field is just so I felt so embraced by it, and it just overwashed me. And I'm getting my degree in psychology and hopefully going to medical school to become a psychiatrist to be
mm.
able to help people. Um, and just, yeah, I just want to be that person, and I want to be able to help that one person and hopefully many, many more. But like I had said, if I just help one person, it's all worth it to me.
No, I think you'll be a brilliant, 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 brilliant psychiatrist. I think you have a different dimension of understanding that a lot of people just simply won't have. And I know it doesn't justify what you've gone through. Obviously, there's nothing that justifies it, but at least that you're utilizing that, for the betterment of others. And so, I mean, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast, Jake. Is there you mentioned that you have other books that you're in the process of writing. Maybe you would want to share a bit about that or any upcoming projects, or have you started
Um,
interacting with people or hosting your own kind of, I know you mentioned the podcast, but have you?
yeah. So I'm in like the pre-stages of starting the podcast. It's going to be called You're Never Alone.
Mm,
Mainly it's going to be on Spotify, and my goal is to get medical professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, people that are around um overcoming trauma and stuff on the podcast to share what they find most helpful, their stories, what they've seen, how what they've noticed helps people overcome things, and most importantly, those who have gone through it. And I do
mm,
want their stories to be shared and for
mm.
them to realize they are never alone.
Wow. No, that's really beautiful and sincere. I'm wishing you the very best for that. Again, I completely commend you for just having the courage to kind of, take life on its strides. It's not easy to go through these things, and a lot of us always we want, I mean, when justice is not delivered, there's a lot to it that our mind has to kind of go through, but um. It's just a joy to hear your story. It's definitely a reminder that you aren't your past, you are what you make of your future, and I think that's what I've really taken from just listening to you speak. It's really you're a forward-thinking person, and sorry, I thought there. No, yeah, yeah, no, try through it. That's what happens when you have so many podcast interviews in a day. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, it's a pleasure and a joy, man, and thank you for coming on and just being courageous enough to share your stuff.
And
It really is.
thank you for being one of those people. Thank you for being one of those people that allow others to share their story, and being someone who's open to hearing about that stuff and allowing me to come on, and it means a lot to me. So thank you for that.
My best brother, no, and looking forward to seeing what you'll be doing in the future. I know psychology is a very difficult degree. I took some psych classes back in uni. I wouldn't do that again for sure. Yeah, for sure, I wouldn't do that again. But no, you'll be good in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how many lives you touch as you move forward. So, Jake, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure, and we'll keep in touch.
Of course, thank you.